Welcome to IFA. I fix everything.
Today's project is to replace a deep well submersible pump. The first step was to remove the well cap and measure the depth of the well. According to my tape measure, the pump is approximately 185 feet down. The water line from the pump is connected to a pitless adapter, which is below the frost line at your location. The pitless adapter transitions the vertical water line from the well to the horizontal water line feeding your home. It's also a quick disconnect for the well. With the magic of a zoom lens, I can see the pitless adapter anchor point is plugged with mud. For clarity, I've included a close-up of the pitless adapter with the anchor threaded into the mud-encrusted connection. To remove the pump from the well, a T-handle is assembled from water pipe and fittings. I like to add caps to the ends for better grip. To fabricate my T-handle, I measured from the pitless adapter to the top of the well. Then I attached an anchor pipe to the pitless adapter that does not protrude from the top of the well. From there, I fabricated the T-handle to attach to the anchor pipe. This waterline guide roller was designed for a smaller well pipe. I secured it with a cargo strap to prevent it from rolling away. You can improvise just about anything to prevent the waterline from chafing on the well casing. Anything that will elevate the waterline as it exits the well casing. For example, a 55-gallon drum laid on its side would also work well. Here I test fit a tow rope from the tractor to the T-bar to make sure everything was ready when I disconnected the pitless adapter. The pitless adapter is a wedge-shaped fitting that will come free with less than a quarter inch of upward travel. To disconnect the pitless adapter, rock the T-handle side to side as you pull up. If the pitless adapter is seated and won't come free, tap on the T-bar nearest the coupling at the center. The pump can be lifted by hand with two people, but a piece of power equipment such as a lawnmower makes the job much easier. Lift the T-handle hand over hand and rest it over the top of your ferrule. Have an operator maintain tension on the rope as you lift the water line from the well. If you feel comfortable the water line will not kink or gouge, have the operator pull the pump slowly from the well. The wiring is often taped to the water line and care must be taken to prevent damage during extraction. The pump wiring was not taped to the water line and was chafing on the well casing and worn through in several places. This caused a short and overheated the pump. Disassembly began when the pump was elevated to a comfortable working height and held in place with squeeze clamps. As I began to remove the water line from the head of the pump, I noticed the clamps were improperly installed. To ensure proper clamping pressure, the worm drive screws should be 180 degrees opposed to one another. Here's a picture of the properly installed worm drive clamps at the pitless adapter. I loosened the two worm drive clamps to allow the barbed fitting to rotate freely inside the poly pipe. Notice the speed of this self-adjusting spring-loaded pipe wrench. It snaps in place and grips on the forward stroke and releases on the return stroke for a ratcheting action that speeds up the removal of the fitting. I place the end of the pipe in the well to let it gravity drain to reduce the weight of the pipe and allow easier inspection. The pump was tested and failed, so it was time to remove the pump from the wiring harness. It took a long pipe wrench and a firm grip to remove the check valve from the pump output. I'm testing the operation of the check valve to verify it can be reused. This deteriorated rubber mess began life as a torque arrestor. It was designed to hold the pump in the center of the well. This will prevent a collision between the pump and the well casing during startup. To function properly, the new torque arrestor must be adjusted to the inner diameter of the well casing. Tighten one hose clamp on the end of the torque arrestor. Compress the body until the center swells to match the diameter of the pipe, and then tighten the other hose clamp. I am using RectorSeal True Blue on all the pipe fittings, but it can also be used on the barb fittings on the poly pipe. I learned about it from a contractor who performs well installations. Another piece of his advice was don't let it get on your clothes or your hands, only time will remove it. Apply the sealant to the male thread so as the part is assembled, it drives the sealant deeper into the threads. Care must be taken when installing the inlet check valve. This pump uses a plastic fitting that can be cross-threaded or split if the fitting is over-tightened. This is one more good reason to use a thread sealant. Here's a close-up of the pipe nipple installation. With the waterline clamped to a matching sawhorse, alignment was quite easy. This pump is 185 feet deep in the well, and it's relying on these two hose clamps to hold it in place. For the best clamping pressure, install both clamps with the worm drive screws face up and 180 degrees opposed. Notice the tails of the clamps are face up. This allows an unobstructed path for the wiring harness. I'm cleaning all the sealant squeeze out before the electrical connections are made. The next step is to wrap the hose clamps with a high-quality electrical tape. Wrap each clamp separately to pull the tail down tight against the pipe, and then wrap over both sections. Secure the first 12 inches of the wiring harness with 3 wraps of tape to prevent chafing. Pre-install heat shrink tubing over the wires prior to installing the crimp connectors. Crimp the wires firmly and then tug test them to be sure they're solid. If the pipe was to break, the electrical connection may be the only thing allowing retrieval of the pump from the well. I applied dielectric grease over the connections and then slid the heat shrink in place. For a more even fit, I prefer to use a heat gun. Inspect the ends to be sure they are sealed completely. Notice the grease squeeze out at the tips of the heat shrink. Next, I sealed the connections with a self-bonding silicone wrap. It is not electrical tape. This is a 3-conductor wire with a 2-wire pump. The third leg has been taped off. Next, I installed the safety rope. I looped it through both eyelets so it pulls with more balance. Poly rope is unaffected by mold but does not like to knot well, so I taped the knot with electrical tape to keep it from unraveling. After a thorough inspection and removing a large segment of the old damaged wiring, a new section was added of high-quality, flexible, flat ribbon wire. It's specially designed for well pumps. These watertight crimp connectors came packaged with clear heat shrink sleeves. Before I began to lower the pump into the well, I tied the safety rope off to a tree with approximately 10 feet of slack. I secured the long end of the rope to the tractor and then released the knot and gradually lowered the pump into the well. I taped the electrical harness and the clamps as they approached the well to prevent them from being torn off as the line was being dragged across the lawn to the well. Next, I applied Vaseline to the flange and the seal of the pitless adapter. A strong light and a little patience will align the pitless adapter and it'll slide into place. I unscrewed the upper half of the T-handle, leaving the longer pipe installed in the pitless adapter. Then I unscrewed one of the caps and installed it on the pipe. This will prevent contamination and thread damage for the future. The electrical connections at the well cap use a reusable waterproof twist connector, so repairs can be made without cutting the wires. Secure the safety rope to the wiring harness and tape it with electrical tape. Store it in the well because it will not withstand the UV rays. Be sure to install the well cover and secure it properly to prevent contamination or animals from falling into the well. It's time to test the system. I reconnected the water line to the bladder tank. I turned on the water pump circuit breaker and checked the pressure gauge for a steady increase. I filled the water filter so I could check the condition of the water. Next, I opened the valve to the water heater and opened a hot water faucet. This will allow the air to bleed from the water heater and allow the tank to fill completely. When the water flows from the hot water faucet consistently, the water tank is full. If an electric water heater is not vented, it's very common to burn out the heating elements. When the well has been agitated, the sediment will be drawn into the pump. The water lines must be flushed clear and the filter replaced prior to drinking. I hope you enjoyed this video and learned something along the way. If you have questions, please leave it in the comments section below. Remember, subscribers are always welcome.